So my name is Jakub Nabrdalik. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I work at the Allegro Tech, and I'm a software developer, a team leader, and from time to time I'm also something different than that. And this talk is actually going to be about money. And the reason why it's going to be about money is because for 2 years I've been a manager a manager in a not very large, but in an international organization, in an international corporation, and I was responsible for up to 50 people. So let's start talking about money. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Do you know who these guys are? Have you ever seen them on TV, on news? No? This is a small country. I think this is called Iceland. This is a small country in Europe, and these people are protesting. Do you know what they are protesting against? Management. Yeah, well, pretty close. They had a big scandal with actually the money and the financial institutions, but actually this time they are protesting against their prime minister. Do you know Panama leaks? Yeah, so you know that a lot of documents have leaked out, and it turned out that the prime minister was actually saving a lot of money by not paying taxes by using a company which was registered in Panama. So he was cheating his own tax system that he was supposed to protect and design, right? So these guys were getting quite upset, and they actually, this is like 10% of the population of the country. This is not a large country, right? So they decided to change the prime minister to his friend from the same party, so I suppose this is the same thing, but it worked, right, for them. Do you know who this guy is? This is Dan Price, and this is a guy who actually started a Seattle-based credit card company, a very successful one, though a very small one. And at one point, he decided that they make so much money that he'll be very happy to bump the minimum salary for every single employee to 70,000 US dollars, which is not bad, considering that in the US there is no such thing as a minimum wage, I suppose. Or there is, but it's like much lower than that, or something like this, right? And all the he got actually quite famous because of doing this, and the organization started to. Is it going down? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to hold it like this. So organizations started to actually invite him for conferences and called him the entrepreneur of the year, because he decided to share the profits of his own company with his employees, and actually with the employees that earn the least amount of money. And that was very good. Would you like something like that happening in your company? Yeah, it's a nice thing, right? The guys who own the whole shit actually sharing some money. Well, unfortunately, there were some unforeseen consequences. And the consequences described here in the Business Insider were actually that some people left the company because they thought it was unfair to double the pay of some of the new hires, and I'm talking about the guys who earn the least, right? While the longest serving staff members got nothing, right? So the increase was only for the people who earn the least, right? And the best guys actually left. Not exactly what he had in mind. And these two stories are there to show you that it's actually very easy to think about doing something good with money and doing something horrible in the end, right? Good intentions doesn't work that way. So what would happen if you were to design the whole system for your company? Like if you were responsible for designing how the structure and how who gets how much money? I was exactly in that situation as an engineer. And as an engineer, I think that all the systems that I've seen so far were kind of like, well, not fair, right? And I think that all the salaries should be optimized for fairness. Why? Because if the people could see all the salaries, your money, my money, everyone's, right? And if they would agree that this kind of money is fine on this position for that person, then probably that would be a fair situation, right? And I would like to see something like this, so that we are earning money not based on our skills of negotiation, for example, and I have beautiful negotiation skills, so I earn a lot, right? But because of what we actually provide, how good we are. and that we could earn more money when we are getting better. How do you make it so that you can earn 50% more than in your current position? Have you ever had a situation like that? I had several times. Every time I was switching a job, right? So something doesn't really work that well in most of the corporations. So my idea was that, okay, so if I'm responsible, basically the owners of the corporation asked me to actually come up with how much money people should get. Then I should have a fair evaluation for all of that as a base. So if I can tell how much everyone is worth, right? But here's the problem. How do we evaluate people? How do you evaluate so that it's fair? And actually, I've been hiring people for like 8 years right now. And when I'm hiring people, I know the answer to that. But it comes because of the process that I do. And while I'm hiring, what I do is this. I decide on what is important for the job, and for most programmers, it will be some skills that I'll talk about later on. Then I work with the new guy, and it's in the perfect situation, I work with the person for 1 day. You just come over to my office, and basically we will work for 1 full day doing pair programming. And after that 1 day, I am able to tell everything about you. I'm able to compare, most of all, I'm able to compare you and your skills to all the other people that are in the company, if it's a small company, of course. And when I do that, you can see how much you are worth, assuming that other guys actually have the same amount of money and a fair amount of money, right? Because we can clearly see where you are located compared to other people, depending on a skill, right? So that's great, and that worked for me for several years when I was hiring people, except this doesn't scale. It's even hard to implement because if you want to get the job at the company, you would have to spend a whole day pair programming with me, right? No, not too many people actually have that kind of a luxury. But if I am a manager of 50 people, then how would I do that? I would have to spend 1 day per year, for example, with each one of them, right? So that's 50 days. How many working days there are during the year? 200? 200 something, right? Excluding the meetings, there's probably like 5 days. But there's no way to do it if you have 50 people, right? So there needs to be another way of evaluation. So maybe we'll first answer the question, who should evaluate people? Developers, product owners, Scrum Masters. And the first answer is that in every corporation, pretty much, the answer is that the managers should evaluate people. Well, the managers, and I was one of the managers, who actually do not have enough data. They do not work with those people to be able to evaluate them in a fair way. Then how about team leaders, if you have team leaders? But there's a problem with that, because if your team leader is going to evaluate you, you're going to treat him differently. There is a team dynamics, and we are talking about real teams, not just a bunch of people put together. And the dynamics there changes whenever you are responsible for my money. The kind of interactions we have is going to change. And sometimes it may even create a master-slave mindset, right? And I don't want that. So how about product owners or Scrum Masters? Well, first of all, this is the same problem with team leaders when you can have the master-slave mindset. But besides that, they don't have enough skills. They have no technical skills. That's why they are product owners and Scrum Masters. If they could code, they would code, right? So the next answer, well, some of the companies actually decide that the answer comes from the market. So the market can tell you how much the person is worth. The problem is that whenever you are checking the market, most of the people actually change their jobs, right? If I want my people to verify, the market to verify my people, then either they are changing the jobs or they are starting their own startups because, well, let's see what the market thinks I'm able to do. It's easy to start a software house. You just need to have a client. That's it. So that doesn't work well in a corporation. And then there is the question that maybe people should evaluate themselves. There are books about that. And I have a problem with this because what happens then is that the guys with the biggest egos win, okay? They are the best of the best of the best. And the problem is that most of the girls do not have big egos. That's why there is a huge difference in salaries between men and women in the IT, or basically everywhere. So that doesn't work too well with fair evaluation, right? And that leaves us with only one group of people that can actually do the evaluation well and have all the skills and all the data. And that is the teammates, everyone you work with. Basically, your team and other teams that you have interacted with, right? So, as a manager, I don't want to actually evaluate you. I want other people to evaluate you, the people that have all the knowledge, because that seems fair. These are the people that have the information. But then the question is, how do we do it? Do we just go and ask them, what's the salary for this guy? I don't know, I don't like him. Okay? That doesn't seem fair. So what do we do? First of all, you have to realize that hard skills do not equal the money, because there are a lot of people with very good skills, but they are just not using them. Because, well, they are not motivated enough, or maybe they're just bored, or maybe they are just looking for another job and don't have the heart for the company anymore, or whatever else. Or they have just a bad day, 365 days per year, for example, right? So, just having good skills is not enough. If you're not using them, why should we pay you more, right? Then there is the idea about dedication. We should pay people for dedication. But have you ever met a very dedicated idiot? I know a few people like that, right? They are very dedicated. They are open-hearted. They would fix everything if they could, but they cannot do actually anything. That's the problem. So it doesn't seem fair to actually pay them the money as well. Right? So some companies think about, okay, so maybe we will pay based on how much profit we get from your work. Now, the problem with this is that for most engineers, we do not choose the project that we work on, okay? Sometimes we may have a choice, but most of the times it's actually depending on the business. So why would why would my salary come from actually only the profits, whether the project I'm in, actually the CTO decided that I have to do it, right? And everybody knows it's not going to be profitable, but I have to do it. So that doesn't work as well. And then there is another idea, which actually I've heard from Kent Beck, and I think they use it in Facebook, that you should evaluate impact. How much impact does one have on the company, right? So the question is, what is impact, right? In a perfect situation, we could verify this based on historical data, right? But how do you get the historical data? I wasn't in a situation comfortable enough for this, and besides, an average developer in Warsaw, where I'm from, changes his job every year and a half, right? So that means there is no data at all to actually compare. So what can we do? Well, there's another problem that even if we had the data, sometimes when engineers do not have the impact they could have on the company, it's very often because of the manager, right? They have a very bad manager. You probably met some bad managers because there are so many of them. So they are stopping the people from fully realizing their potential and having the impact on the company, right? So if I am a manager and I'm responsible for 50 people, I don't want their salary to be low because of my mistakes. That would be crazy, right? This would not be fair. So then we have to approximate somehow. Somehow we have to approximate what is the potential impact of that person, right? How do you do it? Well, I don't know. I have no idea about that. There are no books about it, right? But I know one thing, because I have I think about 14 years of of experience in the IT as a developer, creating software for money, because basic on the C64 doesn't count. But I have about 25 to 30 years of experience playing role-playing games. And in role-playing games, the situation is very similar. First of all, you have to create a team. How do you create a team? Well, you have several options, and what you do is you decide on the kind of skills that you need, and that those skills should work together. You cannot have a team of only snipers, for example, right? And then you have to also take into account some kind of a traits that these characters will have. And then you can combine them and create the perfect theme for your gameplay, right? So that's my base. First of all, I'm going to talk about skills. What kind of skills are needed for a developer? Well, this is my list. When I was hiring people, I decided that I was thinking really hard about what kind of things are important. And to me, from my perspective, the most important things are hard programming skills, object-oriented programming, functional programming, extreme programming, test-driven development, all these kind of things, right? Because, well, you have to write code if you're a developer. Then hard operation skills, like Linux, provisioning, GC tuning, all this kind of stuff, because it actually has to run on production. And then there is communication, because we don't work there alone anymore. I mean, I've turned into computers because I didn't like working with people, and now it's like everything about IT is working with people. So it's crazy, but that's how it is. So we have to have good communication skills. Then it's the understanding. How fast can you learn? Because if I have a new student who can learn very, very fast, he's going to get better than the other guy who stopped learning at all, even if the other guy has got better skills at the moment, right? Then there is self-sufficiency, which is, do you need a lot of attention? Do you need a lot of help? Can I just throw a thing at you, a problem at you, and you will come up with a project to solve it? Or do I have to micromanage you, for example? Some people need this kind of a micromanagement, but it takes my time as a manager, so it actually doesn't work with me very well. And with most of the organization I worked for, it doesn't work at all. If you need a lot of help and attention, no, just deal with it. Get over this, find a solution, ship it out, do everything that needs to be done to prepare the software, right? And there's the focus and motivation, because there is this idea about intrinsic and external motivation, and people who have very high motivation inside of them do not need much motivation from the outside, and it's easier to work with them. And some people who are easily distracted, for example, this is also a problem that a lot of developers have. I don't know about you, but my best programming hours are on the train, when I have no internet connection, or late at night when everybody's gone from the office. Because then I'm not distracted by anyone. So these are the skills. And the reasons for those skills is here. Self-sufficiency is also important because of the T-shaped skills. So you need to have something that you're really good at, but basically you need to know everything, which is hard, right? And the focus and motivation is crucial to build the right culture. Okay, so these are the skills. That's nice, but how do I actually get the numbers? How do I know what is the level of each person and each skill? So what I do is very simple, because it's got to be simple. I take a piece of paper, a sheet of paper like this. I write a line, and this is scale. On the left side of the scale is low. On the right side, this is high, right? Then I take some stickers, and I ask people to take 15 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't really matter that much, and then just evaluate and put stickers there on the sheet of paper with the names of all the people that they can evaluate, that they think they can evaluate. Because, well, we are in a team, but maybe we're not working together because I'm a database engineer and you're a front-end engineer. There's no connection. Or maybe you and me and you, we are in different teams, but we cooperate so much that actually I am able to evaluate you, right? So people put the names here, and there are no numbers yet at this point. Why? Well, the reason is because the important part is only the differences between those sheets of those stickers. Actually, you can see here that these two guys, doesn't matter who they are probably on the same level. It doesn't really matter if those stickers are on the opposite way, if Linus is better than Stallman, for example, but it doesn't really matter. They are basically on the same level. But here, there is a huge gap, which explains why Windows is so popular, right? Now, but that's not the only thing. I take all this, so I ask every one of you to actually do this. I take those sheets of paper, and then I meet every single person that I manage, and I ask them. I spent 15 minutes with them, with one-on-one, just asking them about how does it work. I ask them to explain to me this chart, right? about the bottom and the top 20%. That's the most important part. I try to find the reasons why they think some people are worse and some people are better. Because when you talk with these people, then you can find a lot of information. I write down all this information, okay? Then the next step is normalization. I am interested only in big differences. Why would there be a small difference of 20 euros between your salary and mine? There is no sense, there is no point. How can we have such good estimation to actually be able to tell that I'm 20 euros worth more than you? This makes no sense. So the only thing I'm interested in is actually the big differences. So then I do the clusterization of this, like that, and then I put this into the Excel. Well, because all the managers, they basically live in an Excel world, so I have to have an Excel for that. And what you can see here is a scrambled data from such an exercise, where each row is actually the cluster, right? So 0 is the lowest, no skills, 4 is like, oh, hyper skills, right? And each column is a person. And then each cell here is how many votes were there for that person in that particular skill, on this particular level, okay? And then colors are just based on the weight of the cell. So what you can see here is very interesting. There's not a single number, but you can see a distribution. And from this distribution, you can learn a lot. Actually, this distribution tells you stories. What can you see here? For example, there is this one column there. Can you see it? This guy is probably much better than all the other people. I don't know his salary, but it should be much higher, right? Then you can, for example, find a situation like there are some people who hate that person, who actually decide that not hate, but maybe like decide that on this skill, that person has no skills at all, and some people who think that this person has got very good skills at the same skill. Why does it happen? Why is the difference so large? You can dig deeper if you investigate this, if you start talking with people. And this gives you a complete different perspective on the team that you manage, or the people that you manage. So I did that, and okay, I got some numbers, and numbers are great, but I need some traits as well. I need something more than that. So what are traits? Basically, when we are evaluating each other, I can evaluate your skills as a peer, right? So I can tell how good a programmer you are because I do coding with you. But there are some things that only a manager can see, or basically anyone from a higher level. That you need a higher bird's eye view on that, right? And what kind of things I'm talking about? How about having a person who has got special skills or special interests in performance or security expertise? Something like we've heard before, security is the last thing you do with a project, right? But when you are being attacked, this kind of skills are very important. The same with performance. Performance quite often is like, yeah, don't worry about this. Premature optimization is the root of all evil, right? So that's all great, but then you go into production, and then there is Christmas, and everybody's selling stuff or buying stuff, and it's crazy, right? So what happens then is that you need those skills very, very much, but you need them once a year. And I would, if I were an owner of this company, I would pay much more for a person who actually has this kind of skills, doesn't use them, but kind of like goes to conferences from time to time, reads a book or two, basically keeps up the skills, those skills up to date, right? And from your perspective, if you're working with that person, you don't even know that they are an expert or very proficient with security, for example. But from my perspective, as a manager, this is great, because otherwise I have to hire somebody else for a month, for example, in December. Have you ever tried to hire a security expert in December, or a performance expert? The prices for them goes like this. Why? Because it's December, everybody wants them, right? Even if you're a speaker and you're giving workshops, the prices for workshops also go like this, because at the end of the year, every single company wants to spend money, right, on trainings. So they ask all the people that can actually give some trainings there. So this is one thing. But another trait is like public relations. For example, how many open source projects do you have and you contribute to? Why would it be important for a big bad corporation about your personal open source projects? Well, first of all, because it gives some publicity to the company. So there is a huge market about hiring developers, right? Most of the conferences, most of the companies are actually either trying to, downstairs are either trying to sell you or hire you, right? It's hard to hire developers. So what happens is that if you have open source libraries or any kind of open source commitment there that can be connected to the company, then it's a huge boost for hiring. Actually, people will come over asking whether they can join the company just because they have seen the library there. So if you can, please open source every single library that you have and that looks good, because that doesn't always, it's not always something we want to show, right? The real projects without tests, whatever. But people, even if they have their private repositories there, but you can connect them to the company somehow, then it's beneficial for the company. So public relations, people who speak at conferences, for example, I'm speaking here at the conference and I'm worth more to my employer, or at least I hope so. So that's beneficial trait, right? Then the assertiveness, for example, which is another important stuff, because otherwise you get a feature-driven development, which is the manager screaming at, or a client screaming at you and wanting another feature by the end of the next week, right? And if you are assertive, you actually can say, no, I'm sorry, but otherwise this whole thing will crumble. So assertive people are very important. Otherwise, the projects can go down. Then iron willpower, for example, is another important trait. Why is it important? Because if you ever work in a big bad corporation, then ugly things happen there, okay? So you need to have somebody with iron willpower that does not panic and just keeps, you know, the team together, basically. But then the traits can also be negative. I had, for example, a guy who was a very good developer, but he was a very young developer as well, and he would always panic. And he would go into screaming mode, and run away. Basically, the problem is that this kind of people have to work together. The guy with iron willpower would keep this guy alive. Otherwise, I would lose both, right? Or actually, the low willpower guy. So this is the traits can be also both a plus and minus, right? Positive attitude. It's very, very important because it keeps the spirit of the team. And actually, if you look at the research, what are the reasons why people stay with their company, with their work? One of the important things is what they do, right? Whether they feel they have impact, whether it's interesting, stuff like this. But actually the most important part, and the money is also important, but the most important part are the people around, the kind of people that you work with, whether the culture there is nice, whether you like going there for the job, even if the project is shitty. So the positive attitude can help a lot. If you got people with very, very smiling, open-hearted, then they help a lot. So these are the kind of traits, right? I add and I distract using those traits. So I sum up those, I get the average there, and I can distract and add based on the traits that I see. And at the end of the day, I have this impact clustered, right? So I have a single digit for every single person. And this is exactly what you need if you want to actually give somebody money. You need to have a single digit for the salary, right? And it turned out, for example, that there are not so many differences altogether after clustering in my company. I don't need to have several layers of salaries. I only need 3 of them, 5, 4, and a 3. And if you look at this closely, there's just one guy with this level. Everybody else should be more or less okay. Just 2 levels for most people, 1 for the best guy, and that's it. That would be fair, assuming that everybody has done their job of actually giving the feedback, right? But this can happen only after all the investigation and the sanity checks, because then I do a sanity check with another manager or somebody else, so that nothing funny happening there, right? Do you know a salary formula? Some companies like to have, they are over-engineering this a bit. They have a formula, which is just basically an algorithm for calculating how much money you should get. But I have 25 to 30 years of experience in games, okay? If you give me a formula, I will play with it and I will hack it, right? I can do this kind of thing. And if that formula, if my money depends on this, I can do it very easily. I will have a huge motivation to actually do it. So with this, it's much harder because you actually talk with people and you verify all the feedback. You find out the stories. You dig down deep inside. And there's one more thing why people do not hack, or actually the people that I work with did not want to hack this system. Because when they thought about it, they said that, okay, we don't have a better idea about the salary the system for the salaries, and this seems fair. Now, there's one thing to understand here. If I ask every single person about your own expectations, you would say that, well, the system sounds fair, but my own money is actually not enough, right? I should earn more. I'm better than this. Everybody else is okay. I'm better than this, though. And that's what happens because, well, if you ask the drivers if they are good drivers or the lovers, there is a research on that. If you ask lovers whether the average, what are the level, 75% of lovers say they are better than the average, which is impossible by default, right? The same thing with drivers. So the same thing happens for the salaries. If you ask, if you are going to decide about your own salary, you're going to give yourself more because you regard yourself more. But, so I'm not asking you for your own evaluation, I'm asking everyone else. So this is what I did, and what's next? I used to work in a very corporate-ish environment, so I cannot just give away and just basically make all the salaries public. There are some countries in Europe where the salaries are public. In my country, that's not possible by law. So what happens is that I can still be the guarantee, because people trust me, because I'm also an engineer, and you always have to trust an engineer, that those salaries are one-to-one with actually the impact that we have calculated here, right? Okay, but people still do not know what is the level on 4 and 5. I know how much I earn, but because I'm 3, I don't know how much I can earn, and that's important because otherwise I'm changing the job if it is not enough, right? So salaries cannot be public, that's fine, but fortunately, you can publish salary levels on the different positions. And because people know that there are only 3 positions there that actually count, then they will make the math and actually find out what are the salaries in the corporation. So I'm not breaking any rules of the corporation. On the other hand, all the people know exactly how much they earn and how much everyone earns, right? And you can put this in adverts. There are websites that even require you to give this kind of information. Without exact numbers, you cannot post an advert in there. So what can go wrong? Well, what if everybody gives a maximum positive feedback? Well, nothing happens because we are only comparing the differences between people, right? The maximum positive feedback doesn't have any influence. What if a team gives itself the maximum possible feedback? Well, you are normalizing this data. So when I'm normalizing this, I can see, I'm asking people, why do you think everybody here is on a 5? He's on the maximum right side. And he said, well, because I never worked with such good people. But can you imagine that there are actually some people just as good as this? Well, probably I never worked with them. And then, because I know how those guys are evaluated by other teams, I see that there are no difference. This team is not better than other teams, and these people are not better than the other. It's just that the person evaluating didn't have any kind of reference to compare to other teams. So when you are normalizing this kind of games, when everybody gives maximum positive feedback, doesn't matter. But the biggest thing is that if the system is fair, if everybody agrees, except for my own salary, of course, if everybody agrees for the system, they tend not to hack it. So what are the benefits? I've done this for 2 years in one corporation, and it's been 1 year exactly in another corporation when I've done exactly the same thing. And so far, this is what I have seen. First of all, me, as a manager, it changes everything for me. I don't have to be a judge. Whenever you want a new salary, whenever you want an increase of the salary, then we have to talk, right? But this time, you're not trying to convince me, because I would gladly give you more money. You just have to convince everyone else that you are worth more. How can you do this? Well, by doing good work, for example. So how about, it changes the perspective of the employee. I'm not a judge anymore. I'm a mentor or somebody helping them, how can I get more visibility? How can I be better at what I do? Basically, right? And I have all the feedback and all the information there. Some people talking about, yeah, I like this guy, but I cannot do pair programming with him because he stinks, for example, which is a real problem there. Or, for example, another example, I love working with that person, except that whenever we are trying to discuss some quirky part of code, for example, they take days discussing. I just want to start coding this shit, and they are just talking and talking, right? So this is the kind of feedback that I can give. Maybe you should use a shower more often, or maybe you should be more focused on actually the coding part, because people don't like to, in the IT, do not like to talk so much. And I can give that feedback, and people can actually improve themselves. Like you may have some problems with communication there, because people are like they do think that you're a very good developer, but then on the communication scale you're very, very low, for example. And that helps a lot. So if I don't have to be a judge, I can help you. People do not look at me to judge them, they look at me to explain to them how can they be evaluated better by other people. The next thing is that when people have to convince their peers, the only good way to convince everyone else that you're working with is actually to go do the good work. If you have to trick your manager into thinking that you are a good employee, that's possible. You can lie a lot, right? If you have to convince a group of people, that's also possible. But if you have to convince everyone, that doesn't happen. Well, maybe in the US right now. But basically, apart from this, it's still half of the population, right? So the other half will give you very negative reviews. Okay, then it's easier to work on improving skills because there is no longer master-slave mentality. Your money, I'm not giving you the money. Actually, I'll give you the money that other evaluate you for, right? So basically. It's easier to work with me or with anybody else because not a single person is judging you. Everybody is judging you. It takes 10 to 25 minutes per developer total. So it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for you to fill the sheets, and then for a meeting, about 15 minutes to actually explain this to me, right? And then for the feedback, we will usually take another 15 minutes because I have to explain to you, because I meet every single person later on, and I talk with them about the outcomes. What should be improved? What can be improved? How can we improve it? Do we have to improve it? Maybe you have bad communication skills, but maybe that's who you are. Maybe you don't need to improve this. Maybe if you can improve the operation skills, everybody will say, yeah, we don't like to talk with him, but basically he's a very good guy. And that will be enough, right? To actually push you to the next cluster. So that's important. And it gives you a ton of feedback after the investigation. So if you see the distribution there that I've shown you, it gives you a lot of information that can dig deeper and find out the problems that teams have. I had the problem when one guy was evaluated, that was a Scrum Master, evaluated on the maximum left side, the bad side, right, in communication. Which is kind of tricky, because if you're a Scrum Master and you have no communication skills, there's a problem there, right? And I couldn't see it. From the outside, I could not see that, because the team was productive, that was fine, right? But the team was actually working against the Scrum Master, not with the Scrum Master. So without that guy, the team was much better than it used to be. And this kind of information you can get only if you get the data from the people. And this technique can also be used not only for developers, but also for product owners, Scrum Masters, QAs, system engineers, everyone who works in a team, or basically has got peers that work with him. And why? Well, because I've shown you there are 6 types of skills that I actually evaluate, and only 2 of them are technical. The other 4 are not. So for the other people, for the product owners, Scrum Masters, and so on, I just drop those 2. I just evaluate everything else. But there are problems with this technique as well. This is not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets, right? And the problems are like this. It doesn't work for people working alone. So for example, if you have one mobile developer that just does his Android or iPhone application, that's it, and nobody works with him, he just consumes some REST APIs and that's it, then nobody will be able to evaluate him. The same thing happens if I were to actually get myself the peer-to-peer evaluation. As a manager, that is a problem. Because I'm not working with other managers, so I don't actually have peers. They're on the same level, they do not work with me. Who can give me feedback, right? So it doesn't work with people working alone. And then it's very tempting to dehumanize because you have all the numbers. You got Excel, and Excel is very important for management. And look, with the easiest thing you can do is create a salary formula and just stop talking with people. Just, fill up the sheets and everything will be calculated automatically. But don't do that because then it will be played and it will be gamed and it will be unfair. And then another problem is that you cannot compare salaries between different positions because market levels for different positions are different. So what do I mean? Who earns more, a product owner or a Scrum Master? Who thinks it's a product owner? No, but between those two positions. But you're true, a developer earns more. He's got bigger impact, right? Okay, so who's for a Scrum Master? And for product owner? So more for the product owner. Scrum Master earns more. The average on the market, at least in Warsaw, is higher for the Scrum Master. But what that means is that if you have a Scrum Master, and people are getting tired of their job, and sometimes they want to switch, right? So if I had a Scrum Master who is really excited about some product, he wants to become a product owner right now for a new product that we have, right? And that's completely fair. It's a very good decision, and I can help him do that. Everybody and the company will benefit from this, right? But there's a problem, because he's going to become a product owner with more money than other product owners on the same skill level. And you cannot solve this, okay? He used to earn more as a Scrum Master, and now he moves into product ownership, right? And he's got more money than other good product owners. The only thing I can think of here is to think about that he's got a trait. He's got 5-10 years of experience as a Scrum Master, and this is a trait. But am I fair here, or am I cheating? Or maybe I have the same situation is with developers if they switch. Like, for example, I'm a backend developer and I'm going crazy and I want to be a front-end developer, right? That never happens, but let's imagine a situation like that, right? It goes the other way. And what now? Front-end developers do not earn as much as hardcore backend developers because the job is easier. Well, right now it's not easier anymore. But they do not earn the same amount of money, and you have less impact if you are a front-end developer than you would have if you were a back-end developer. But I don't want to lose you because you are a good developer. And then another thing is that it helps me a lot if I have people with multiple skills and experience in different positions, right? Because then what happens is that if we have to make a pivot or any kind of a change, it's easy if everybody knows everything a little bit, at least, right? So between positions is hard in this system. Then another thing is that what happens is that, I don't know what you think, but from my perspective, we do not grow, the developers do not grow like this, right? What happens is that you jump from time to time. There's a year where nothing happens, then there's a year you meet new guys, you read a book, then you have a lot of motivation, you start working hard, and then you make a huge progress. Then you meet this nice little lady, and then she becomes your wife, and well, and for a moment it's beautiful, but nothing happens on the work site, right? Then you realize that you need more money because you need a house for this lady and for yourself, so you actually have to work more, and then there's a huge jump there. And then you realize that, oh, there are going to be babies, and there are 2 of them, and those babies take a lot of time, and you don't want you to just leave them alone. So actually, no progress for you for a few years. And stuff like this happens all the time. So actually, the way we learn and the way we get more impact is with those jumps. And those jumps are very difficult to explain to higher management, because those guys think like, yeah, you can get a salary increase from 3 to 5% a year. If you are a very good employee, then you will get 5. If you're a bad employee, you will get 3. That's the difference, and that's it, right? And now I have somebody, And they are telling me this guy is no longer a developer, he's a senior developer right now, right? Doesn't matter if he's got 27 years, he's a senior developer because he's on this level. Everybody knows that. So now I have to convince the managers that he needs 40% of salary increase, otherwise he's going to another company where he's going to get 50. No problem with that. So what you do with this situation is you show them this, all right? And they shut up. Because if they see a big Excel, they understand that it must be true. And to be honest, I'm absolutely convinced with that. They do check the formulas, okay? They do check the reasoning. They really do. If you look at their own business projects and whatever else they have in those Excel files, all the mathematics there is fine, except for the numbers. The numbers are taken out of the blue and basically just shitty, right? But the reasoning is fine. They like that. So here I have the numbers, and I know the numbers are true because they are statistically correct, because I'm optimizing for fairness. And then I just show them this, and the numbers are correct, the formulas are correct, and they shut up and they give the money. And actually this happened. The guy got the 40% salary increase. So that's not bad. Okay, but then there is another warning, which is if you are a small company or if you own the company, fair salaries actually limit your options, and it's not obvious. How does it work? Well, you cannot reduce the base salary. It's not possible in any kind of company I know of, so in any kind of country I know of. So what happens is that if everybody goes up and the person stays on the same level, right? And you basically, or changes the job from the Scrum Master to the Product Owner position, right? And he should earn less. Then you have to say goodbye. Then you have to let the person go, because otherwise their salary would not be fair compared to everyone else. And the system has got to be fair, otherwise it makes no point. So what you can do with this is that you have to think about it beforehand and basically create a system where you have a base salary and a bonus. And if you are performing very bad, then the bonus is taken away. And because you cannot reduce the base salary, or just have a B2B contract with the guys, right? So moving between positions is difficult because of different market levels, and you cannot use the money for motivation. And managers, they love to do that, right? They're like, yeah, it's the end of the year, it's a crunch, we have to do it, and we'll deliver this, and I will have a bonus for that, right? You cannot do it. Or I will increase your salary if you manage to do it. Not happening anymore, because salaries have got to be fair. But basically, this kind of practices are bad by design, and they don't work well with IT and development, because are you going to get smarter because now you will have more money for this project? Not really. It may work on your motivation, but from the motivation perspective, there is something much cheaper and much better for you, which is the company's culture. Okay? It's hard to achieve, but it's cheaper from the money perspective. So you cannot use the money for motivation. But the biggest benefit from all of that is that people tend to like it. I used that for 2 years in the previous company, and now for a year in Allegro. And people that are actually evaluating themselves, everyone around, tend to give me feedback that it works, that it's good. And, well, to be honest, I'm not doing this on paper anymore. I'm not doing this because I'm lazy and I have no time to actually enter this to the Excel, so I'm using Google Docs. So after the first round, when I actually ask people to do it on the paper, so they understand that numbers are not important, the differences are important, then I ask them to actually do this on Google Forms and just do it like here, right? And I save about 2 days of work entering all the data into the Excel. And that's it. Thank you very much.
How often do you make evaluation in your company?
That's a good question. I would like to do it as often as possible, but actually I think this is not possible more than once half a year, or once in 3 months, because people do not change that quickly. So actually you don't want to do that and just use so much time for it. And then you don't want to do it once a year as well, because people change faster than that, right? So once half a year is perfect for me, but I believe that it depends on the company.
How about bonuses? Should it be calculated from employees' current salary, team average, or just plain numbers?
Once again,
how about bonuses? So how do you calculate bonuses?
I don't know. How about not paying bonuses and just paying people more?
Okay, and the last question. Will you hire me?
Huh?
Will you hire me? That was another question.
Yes, if you're anywhere in Poland, I can hire you. If you're not in Poland, well, there's a problem there yet, but contact me and we'll talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.